I'm Jake.
I'm Tom.
And we are VIMTV Velocities in Music. Tom, I'm really excited to review the album we're about to review. You know why?
Tell me.
Because it's The Downward Spiral by 9 Inch Nails, and it might be your favorite album of all time.
In fact, it is.
I'm debating if I were to do a 2011 list. I mean, it's up there for me. It might be number one for me. These things change on a day-to-day basis, but we love The Downward Spiral, and we're going to tell you why here. This was requested by a VIMTV viewer named Ian, and really, to be honest, everyone...
A lot of other people.
We've had a ton of people requesting this album because I think that this is a cult classic, but a lot of the reviewing sites out there, because by the way, you're all music reviewers, you're just like us, there's nothing special about us or any of those other music reviewing people or sites out there. They're no more music reviewer than you are, so don't take them that seriously. They all have given this like 80 out of 100. What? What are you thinking? Have you listened to The Downward Spiral? Do you know? I used to not be a 9 Inch Nails fan, and I couldn't escape this album. This album snuck up on me. It's visceral intensity. It's dark story. It's just absolutely endearing qualities of how dark and just but gripping it is at the same time. I truly feel like if you give this album a chance and listen to it straight through, it will grab you.
I think this is an album that, regardless of what kind of music you listen to, if all you listen to is Celine Dion, I think you should still have to listen to this album at some point in your life. If I were an evil dictator, I would force all of my subjects to listen to this album just once. Just once, and if you like it from there, you can decide, but I think everyone should have to because it is a musical experience that you will not get anywhere else.
I'm pretty sure that there should be an amendment to the Constitution that says you are entitled to listen to this at least one time, and you can go to Washington, D.C., and they just have it blaring. That's in the Constitution.
That's the world I want to live in.
Yeah, I'm going to run for president. That's the first thing I do. Tom, can you give us some history about 9 Inch Nails, Trent Reznor, and The Downward Spiral?
Trent Reznor as 9 Inch Nails. I mean, they're kind of one and the same. Obviously, he has people helping him. He had a crew of people helping him on here that are all very talented, but obviously he is the brains, he's the mastermind, songwriter, performer behind this. And basically, you know, his first album, Pretty Hate Machine, came out in 1989. From there, he had the Broken EP, which is... It's a great EP. It's really even closer to an album than it is an EP, just because of how much content there is and how just great it is. Really, it makes a great statement. But it was an interesting transition because Pretty Hate Machine was more than anything taking like the synth pop of Tears for Fears and Depeche Mode and that sound into a little heavier, darker direction.
Defining what industrial music really was at the time and was going to become.
Yeah, for bands like, I mean, and they had been around, but bands like Ministry and KMFDM, you know, there's some similarities there. But Trent Reznor, what's made him so successful is he's always had more of a pop mentality. Now, while this is not a poppy album, what I'm saying is he knows how to make hooks and incorporate them into that abrasive noise, and that's what makes this so great. But the Broken EP was really the first sign of that because it was like all of a sudden it goes from you know, Pretty Hate Machine, which was very polished sounding, not safe, I'd say, but safer than his subsequent albums, where Broken EP was like, holy crap, this guy got mad. He was pissed off at his record label, just all that noise, and so going to The Downward Spiral, 1994, basically what he did is he holed himself up in a house, which he called Le Pig, which happens to be the house that Sharon Tate was murdered in by the Charles Manson family and that whole fiasco. So there's a lot of history in this house. He got the house, set up shop, went to town, made this album. Yeah, and I mean, it was the kind of thing where he was kind of like tormented by the house. Like, I mean, it was like...
I think by design.
Yeah, exactly. It helped set up the moods for this album, which really is kind of a quasi-concept album. There's not a very concrete story, but in general, it tells the story of a man going on a downward spiral where he eventually commits suicide and struggles along the way with problems with sexuality, relationships, personal identity. There's a lot of existentialist concepts in here. I mean, this album really, while it's a very heavy, dark, industrial album, it deals with a lot of philosophical themes. And I mean, there's a lot of depth here and a lot of different concepts driving this story. which Trent has actually kind of said partially represents himself at the time, because he was at kind of a dark time in his life. He was still doing drugs a lot. He was living in this creepy ass house with a lot of dark history, and so he made this album. And what I think makes this album such a testament to just the history of music in general and a landmark is that he absolutely was going for nothing with it.
Right.
He made the album that he felt he needed to make. When he was done with it, he gave it to his record company and basically apologized. He was like, I don't even know what I have here. And I think that is the best kind of album you can make, is when you don't even know what you're making.
It's truly authentic.
Yeah, you are just following your heart and your mind, making the album you have to make. He was shocked when he found out they picked Closer as a single, because he was like, I thought that would be the last pick, Think about the lyrics. I want to F you like an animal. And yet it's become one of the most successful singles in history, defining an era and a genre at that.
It's a truly timeless single of that.
It's true. And so, I mean, all that history aside, when you listen to just the music, it is so powerful. Mm-hmm. And while it is noisy, there is a beauty to it. There is an underlying humanity that you can't help but connect with. Mm-hmm. And I mean, a lot of people would find this to be way too macabre and depressing. I find it beautiful. I think it's uplifting. I think it just brings me back to the roots of who I am as a human. And there's something to be said about that. I mean, I'm not ashamed to say there are several times on this album where I have to hold back tears because it is just so goddamn moving.
Right, and especially once you get to the closing track, Hurt, which was so moving that even Johnny Cash covered it. And
great cover.
Arguably even better than the original.
Some would say. I wouldn't argue.
If you take that outside of the context of the album, the fact that it closes this album makes it just the perfect closer, in my opinion. And as we said in the previous review, closing an album of any kind, but especially a concept album, is almost the most important thing about the album.
And what makes this album so perfect is that not only does it have the front to back album listen experience, but you can also pick out just about any song and it's amazing on its own. Some work for that better than others. I mean, I don't think you'd want to listen to the title track, Downward Spiral, or maybe A Warm Place by itself. Yet, in context of the album, those end up being some of the most powerful tracks. Especially like A Warm Place. Oh my God, after you've gone through the assault of the first 9 tracks, especially Big Man with a Gun, it gets to that, and that is just a freaking pounding short song, and then into A Warm Place, and A Warm Place is the most gorgeous thing by that point that you have ever heard.
And then that flows perfectly into Eraser.
Yeah.
And man,
when those drums come in and Eraser,
Yep.
boom, it is just chilling, absolutely chilling. What's great too is that Trent knows exactly when to make the album flow and when to make it very abrupt. Some of these songs just cut off. Just unforgivingly. There's just like all of a sudden, that's the end of the song. Some of them flow right into each other, like A Warm Place into Eraser. And so it creates kind of these different segments, these different episodes in this saga that is this album.
Really, what more can we say about it? It's better than an 80, guys. You gotta go out and give this thing a chance. And if you really open yourselves up to this album, I think you'll find that this thing, the first time I really did that, I said, holy crap, this is really, really good. And then I just started going, I kept coming back. And the abrasive qualities about this were affected me less. And I think that if you give this a chance and open yourself up to it, you'll find that it's rather easy to listen to the more that you try. If you find it abrasive at first, if you're not, accustomed to industrial music or metal, or just heavier, intense music, it might be tougher for you to get into this. But if you forced yourself to listen to this straight through 5 times or so by yourself, I think that you're going to be blessed with one of the best albums you've ever heard in your life. And if you love music, this is one you absolutely have to have in your repertoire. So go out and do it. I don't know what else to say. I'm giving this a 100.
Of course, 100.
I compare most of the music we review review on Velocities in Music, I compare to this album. This is the standard for music reviewing for me.
As
really
far as what makes an album,
Right.
with individual songs as well as an album listen, production,
Right.
varied song structures. I mean, every little cliche thing that you've heard us talk about in any review, this thing nails.
It maxes it out. I mean, and that's why I think it has to be, you know, VIMTV's collective favorite album. It has to be. So what do you guys think? If you've heard this, tell us your stories, and if you haven't, listen to it and then give us your feedback, because that would be awesome. I think that this is a very underrated album, even as famous as it is. So I'd love to hear your feedback. Give us your comments at www.velocitiesinmusic.com or youtube.com/velocitiesinmusic at our YouTube channel. Also, follow us on Twitter, like us on Facebook. That's where we love to talk about Nine Inch Nails. So do that. I'm Jake.
I'm Tom.
And we are VIMTV. Thanks for watching, everybody. We are moving music critique forward.